One missed Windows Event ID could hide an attack. Here are the 10 event IDs every SOC analyst must know.
Security operations centers ingest millions of logs every day, yet full-scale network breaches still slip past them unnoticed. A brute force attempt, a successful login, and a domain admin assignment. This three-step sequence allows an adversary to move from the perimeter to full network compromise in 63 seconds. And remarkably, this attack triggers no antivirus alerts. The adversary uses native Windows functions rather than custom malware to move through the environment. Advanced SIEM tooling aggregates data. It does not think. If the analyst does not understand the underlying native telemetry architecture, the software provides a library of data with no index. Security tools do not detect attacks on their own. An analyst's ability to recognize behavioral patterns in raw data is the only mechanism that actually stops a breach. A SIEM acts as a data aggregator. Its primary function is to store and index telemetry, not to provide inherent threat intelligence. If the native logging policies on the endpoint are not explicitly configured, critical attack telemetry is never generated. The SIEM cannot report on activity it was never told to record. We can deconstruct the anatomy of a complete network compromise using 4 native Windows Event IDs. We will identify a critical visibility gap in default Windows configurations and build the exact queries required to hunt this behavior at scale. Relying on a SIEM with active endpoint telemetry configuration provides an organization with a false sense of security. Consider a crisis scenario. The network is under active attack. Your SIEM is unreachable, or the operating system is corrupted, leaving you with only command line recovery options. In these scenarios, analysts fall back on native utilities like the Windows Event Viewer. This utility categorizes endpoint data into 3 main buckets: application, system, and security. For a SOC analyst investigating a breach, the security log serves as the primary evidence ledger. This specific stream tracks core intrusion behaviors, user authentications, privilege changes, and process creations. A busy server generates thousands of these events every hour. Identifying the signal requires a precise understanding of which event IDs correlate to specific attack phases. Mastering the native security log is the absolute foundation of incident response and threat hunting. Phase 1 of the compromise is infiltration. We start with event ID 4625. This indicates a blocked or failed logon attempt. The signature of a brute force attack is a dense cluster of 4625 events firing in rapid succession as an attacker attempts to guess credentials. A failed logon indicates an authentication attempt was blocked. While these events represent a high-volume data stream, they do not verify that a perimeter has been crossed. The critical pivot requires event ID 4624, a successful logon. A long sequence of 4625s followed immediately by a single 4624 indicates that the brute force succeeded. The attacker has obtained valid access. Individual log events lack context in isolation. The specific sequence of these events reveals the adversary's progress. Phase 2 is escalation. Access to a standard user account offers limited value. To manipulate the network, the attacker needs administrative control. Event ID 4728 triggers when a member is added to a security-enabled global group. In this scenario, the account we identified in the previous phase has been added to the domain admins group. The adversary utilized stolen credentials and native administrative functions to grant the compromised account full operational control over the environment. When Event ID 4728 fires on an account that recently showed brute force indicators, the network is fundamentally owned by the adversary. Phase 3 is execution. Event ID 4688 records process creation. This allows us to see exactly what the attacker is doing. By default, 4668 generates a massive volume of data. To save storage costs, organizations often leave this event disabled. Even when enabled, the default setting only logs the name of the process being run. It does not record the specific instructions that process was given. To fix this, administrators must manually configure the advanced audit policy using group policy objects. The specific setting requires enabling include command line in process creation events. Once enabled, this configuration reveals the exact malicious command executed by the attacker. Without explicitly configuring command line auditing on the endpoint, the SIEM remains functionally blind to the attacker's payload. Understanding the native event viewer provides the necessary logic, but manual log review is unscalable for enterprise environments. Analysts translate these native event sequences into SIEM queries, specifically using the Custo query language, or KQL, for Microsoft Sentinel. To hunt our infiltration sequence, we filter the sign-in logs for failed results, targeting events where the result type is not equal to 0. Next, we summarize by grouping these failed events by the target user and the source IP address. The core KQL concept required to spot a brute force is the bin function. The bin function groups events into strict time windows, such as 5-minute intervals. This allows us to measure the velocity of the attack. We establish a logic threshold to flag any single IP generating more than 20 failed attempts within a 5-minute window. Applying time-bound query logic is the mathematical method for isolating an automated brute force attack from normal human typos. Effective cybersecurity is an engineered visibility pipeline, not a static product. This pipeline relies on 3 pillars: deliberate GPO configurations, intimate knowledge of native event IDs, and the translation of those sequences into SIEM queries. Relying on static signatures is relying on history lessons of past attacks. By mastering core behavioral telemetry, analysts can